Yeah, I really don't know what's causing this.
No idea.
I appreciate the help after with class though.
Sure.
Yeah, I really don't know what's causing this.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll figure it out.
I appreciate the help after.
All right, so welcome back. We are GDD403. That's problem solving with data structures and algorithms in the winter 2023 semester at Canadore. And it's week 6, part 3 of our broadcast and recording. And where last we left off, we did some shuffling is what we did. And that was internal shuffling. You can't see the shuffling. I don't expect you to visualize that, but we want to definitely be able to see the cards. Now, what we had before were these 4 objects that we had here as a test. We're going to get rid of them. So get rid of all the cards in the scene, please. And I'm just going to go and get off of 2D for a second. We don't need to see the 2D table. We can see the 3D table here for a second. Okay. And what I want to do here, let me just undo that change. So there's the cards where we saw them, right? So the cards in the 2D table in the table in the editor kind of look like this. I'm just going to bring this up and so we can zoom out. So again, I'm just going to, there we are. And I'm just kind of make it so that we can see this table, the top, the same way we're seeing it in the scene approximately. This is kind of, we see it. And if we kind of play this before we delete the cards, sorry, one thing, we should be able to highlight each of the cards in the scene. So if I click on this one, you can see that we're kind of reversed. Whatever we're looking at here is backwards. And the reason why I wanted to do that was because I want to make sure my orientation was correct. Here and up. Probably could have told that from the shadows. The shadows here were different than the other shadows. Probably a way of doing it, but whatever. And so this is where it is right here. Good, good, good. Excellent. And then now we can get rid of these cards. So let's get rid of them. And now, how would I do the shuffle? All right, so the shuffle I've done, but how do I do the dealing, right? Well, I want to be able to, let's just place them. No animation for now. Let's just place the cards where they're going to be and drop them onto the table, which is kind of what we want. But we're going to have different patterns, right? We're going to have a card pattern that's 2x4. We're going to have a matrix that's also let me just go back here to my difficulty rankings. So if you go to the drop down, we said that it's going to be a 2x4, a 4x4, and a 6x6. Whoa. So the maximum would be 6x6. That means if I have my table surfaces and if I have my card, the maximum number of cards I'm going to have is 36 cards on this thing. So I need 36 drop points, potentially for this to happen, right? If I look at this thing from the top-down view, oops. If I look at this thing from the top-down view, so I'm looking at the table top-down. So look, see how this is looking, not where my camera's looking, but where the table is. So I'm looking at it almost like in a 2D view. There's the table from a 2D view, right? This part right here, right? So this is where I'm looking. Then you can see that I have, I don't know, so many cards that I can fit on. Let's just do this. I'm going to go into my prefabs, and I'm just going to drag and drop my 2 of clubs in there. So see what that looks like. So this is where the 2 of clubs can go, right? And I'm going to go to the extreme. I'm looking at it from the top. I'm also going to look at it from, or the kind of a, just for a second, I'm going to look at it from a top orthographic projection, right? So we can see what this looks like. So this is kind of the most extreme, kind of like, top end. Go back to perspective mode now. We can see that this is kind of how much this card is, right? And we can kind of add a bunch of cards, more than 36 cards for sure. So a 6x6 means that there's going to be 6 cards wide by 6 cards down. So we're going to kind of do something like, I don't know, let's kind of select some spaces here. So I'm going to say something like this would be maybe a space that's the first space that I want. And I'm going to use numbers, real numbers here. So you can see here that my first position where I'm going to drop my card is going to be from an X position, a minus 2.39 and a Y position 6.78 with respect to the game world, right? My Z position, as an example, is something that we want to change. And remember, whenever we select the card, with the card selector script. So if I go back to my scripts, and if I look at my, when I select the card, as an example, the card script itself. If I look at the card script, and if I scroll down, then we have on mouse exit, on mouse over for every card. We do this right now. This is a little bit extreme. We might take some of this off, but as an example, when I physically select the card, when I click onto the card itself, here it is on mouse over. When I click onto it, then I flip it, right? That's what happens. Okay. And when my flip algorithm, I'm just looking at the card to flip it. Flip says it's going to be at the Y position is 7.5 up. So all my cards then should start off like, just to make it the same, at 7.5 on the Y axis. So going back to that means this card here should be at 7.5 on the Y axis. That doesn't matter. I'm just going to show you what this looks like. So it looks something like this, right? And then if we want to think about this, like how many cards I can fit wide, and I want to make it, then theoretically, then we can put it kind of towards the edge, like over here. This is kind of what we would see from the top-down view. And again, this is relative to, let's go back to orthographic. It's going to fade out in a second. Yeah. What I want to do is, just, if we can visualize this just like that. There we go. If we can visualize this, we can see that there's one, like how many cards can we fit on here total? Is the total. So if I do a duplicate card, so Control D, and I duplicate that card and move it over, that would be 2. How many cards wide can we fit on here, right? So this surface, as an example, you can see that it's 2 cards wide, as an example, approximately 2 cards wide there. Just move it there. Oh, I have to make sure that the 2 of club is minus 2.6, and this is minus 2. That's kind of right next to each other. So it looks like if I was going to look at the club from a scale perspective, right, then the scale of the club is roughly 0.6 units wide, and Control D. Control D. I want to just kind of size these up for a second so we can see what it looks like on the table. I'm going to give you these values. So minus 2.6, right? And then 1.6, 1.7. Sorry, where is that one? 1.7. That is at 2.6. 2.6. 2.6. Just going to go into perspective mode for a second. And then I'm going to just use V snapping. And snap together. So 1.7, 1.8, 1.75. So I don't really have a good sense of how big these cards are because I didn't make them. Just going to use V snapping again. I'm just going to use V snapping for these ones. V snap. Let's put them all on the same level. 7.5, 2.6. This is negative 2.5. And let's move all these around just so that they appear to be on the top left corner. You'll see what I'm doing in a second. Hopefully you've seen it already. That seems to be the best that I can see from a top orthographic perspective. I can't really zoom in more unless I kind of do one of these. So you can see that it's kind of there. There. So that is the top left corner. And if I was to just click on the first top left card, this is the reference card that I'm using. It looks like negative 2.73 is the X position. And Do I have more room? I do. Move up a little bit further. It's because I can't, I'm getting a highlight with these cards. And the problem is that maybe I'll put them down on the ground, put them at put them on the tables, you know, kind of position. Gonna go out of this for a second and go back into this. There's other ways to do this, but I want to just snap this in place, right? So that I want to create almost like areas. There we go. And this one seems to be V-snapping, but not V-snapping correctly. V-snap, there we go, V-snap. V-snapping is a way of snapping our cards so that they're aligned the exact same way. Right? That's good. All right. And let's look at it from the top. And let's look at it, moving this down. Probably as close as I can get. So what it looks like to me is if I was going to judge it, that the X position this way is negative 2.7826. And the next one, the next card, which is this one, is going to be negative 2.165. Let me just get these numbers in here. I'm going to put a notepad in there. I know it's a little bit of work, but it's just it's a one-time cost. Honestly, I know that's a little bit crazy. These aren't my cards. That's why I'm doing this. So if I'm going to copy what you can do is you can copy the transform, the position, and you can go into like a notepad and paste it in, right? And then I can do the same thing for the other one. I can go to this one, and then I can copy the position. And then I can go to my notepad and paste it in, and I can compare those values. So it's 2.78 minus 2.16, and then we'll get the width, right? So so get that value. Bear with me. And minus, be super accurate, equals to 0.6232. So that is the width of the card. So 0.6232 is the width of the card, right? And what about the height? So that's width. And we can make it approximate. We won't have to make it exact same, right? But that's the width of each card and the height of each card. Let's do the other way around. So we want to grab this one, copy that one, copy position, go back to my notepad and paste that in. So now it's going to be these ones that I want to take a look at. This is not exactly right. And I was worried that's a height difference. That's okay. And this is 2.67 minus 1.8. Here's my calc. So again, 2.61671 minus, and then 1.8. It's equal to 0.87 units. $6.23. What happened there? I lost something there in the shuffle. Hold on a second. So it's this. Bear with me, guys. I'm so sorry. This minus this equals to this. It's more like it. Okay. So now that I have the width and the height, this is the width and the height approximately of each card based on me putting two cards next to each other, right? Because that's how I have to do it. So that means that if I have a width of 0.623, right? And the table itself, you can see that it's X number. How many cards can it fit on the table wide? How many cards can it fit on the table long? That's something that we want to do. So we want to kind of continue doing that. So I'm going to say, take this card, Control D, and then move that card into place. Control D, move that card into place approximately. Control D, move that card into place. And then realistically, we can probably have, just using cards to count them, I probably can have almost exactly this many cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 by, I'm sure it's probably 7 by 7. Let's just check this out. Maybe not, maybe more. So D. Okay. Again, even if I lose a little bit, it doesn't have to be super accurate, but okay. So mapping out the table. Maybe if I take away some of those things, and this is where it's going to be a little bit card snapping. Let's do that again. So V snapping. So V, the way you do V snapping is you press the V key and then hold down while you're hovering over an item that you selected, and then you can snap it into place. So V key, V snapping, V key, V snapping. And it's vertex. So if you have more than one vertex that I'm logging in, that I'm connecting to, it may not be 100% accurate, and I don't care about that. I just want to see if I get better than what I had, because this is probably where we want to go. Yeah, I thought so. So this is going to be, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 7 by 10. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 7 by 10. So I can go 10 across and 7 down. I only do 6 across, which means that if I think about this, then if I just put in 6 empty checkpoints across, and if I was to kind of measure from here to here, like this is kind of like approximately what it's going to be. So 10 across. Now I have my objects here. Here's my object. And if we look at it, and if I say my height, my width is 0.62, that means I can have about 6.2 units across, right? For how much I will take up. So this is equal to approximately 6.2 units for the entire table, right? And then this is 7 down, because this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 approximately, which is equal to 7 times 0.87. 7 times 8 is 56. So something like 6 units down, almost 6 by 6, almost, right? Calc 0.87 times 7. Yeah, 6.09, 6.10, something like that. So 6.1 units in the other direction. So like 6.2 by 6.1, let's say 6.2 by 6.2. Approximate magic that we're going to use. We're just going to use the same numbers, 6 by 6, and then that's what it's going to be, 6 across by 6 down. That's the total amount of space that I have on my game board, right? 6 by 6. I don't need 6 by 6 because that's like if I do a whole 10 items, the game board is 6 by 6.2 by 6.2 because it's a square board, right? And I want to find 6.2 and divide it by 6. Which means approximately every 1 unit, right, across. So every 1 unit, I'm going to start off, and I'm going to put in a checkpoint or a spawn point, right? So every 1 unit. So now that I know this, right? I know your mind is probably going, what is he talking about? Trust me. I want to put a spawn point. Let's make a brand new little environment empty. Create an empty. We're going to make it call this spawn points. Spawn points. Right? Where we're really, these are card spawn points. That's what they are going to be. We're going to make this 0. We're going to zero this out, reset it to 0, 0, 0, right? And what we want relative to this thing, I want to add a card. So let's get that card back in the scene. I'm just going to go back into prefabs, grab a card, and I'm going to put it inside of card spawn point. So this is the 0, 0, 7.5. See, it comes in at 7.5, which is really great, right? And that's kind of the middle of the table, and the table itself, notice is like the middle of the screen. So this is kind of the exact middle of my object. That's the club, right? And what I want to do is to be right. I know that if that's the middle, I can fit in, kind of like maybe maximum. If that's the exact middle, I want to move off center by 0.5. So I never want to have a card exactly in the center. So something like on the x-axis, I want to move something like 0.5 on the right. And then I want to go one card to the left, which is my next card. So again, Control D, and I want to move one card to the left. So this is going to be at a position of minus 0.5, right? And then every one is where this is going to be relative to these ones. So so then I'm going to go again, Control D, right? Hear me out what I'm going to do. This is the measuring was first. Now it's going to be the next one. So it's another 1, so minus 1.5. And then that's 3. And I'm going to put 1 on this side. So this is going to be this one. Control D. This is club. Remember that one. And I'm going to put this one at 1.5. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 more. And then I'm going to put in this one on this side. So that's going to be Control D. Control D just duplicates, and that'll be 2.5. And we're going to adjust this in a second, right? And then this one here, Control D, and then minus 2.5, minus 2.5. All right, so that's what it looks like. How is that looking from a card table perspective? How does that work? So again, we're looking at it in 3D, so it's always tricky when you're looking at it in 3D with shadows and all that stuff. So let's see what it looks like in the game when I'm kind of spawning. This is the game. If I press play, do these cards all fall down? Do they look good? What does it look like? Right? Nice and even. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards are across. And I want 6 rows of 6, right? At the maximum value. And those, I'm going to use all that for these spawn points, okay? Because these are the spawn points for all the cards. I'm going to use all of those things. I'm going to create empty game objects, and those empty game objects are going to be exactly where the cards are going to spawn, okay? That's how I'm going to do it. All right, so I want to grab all of these cards here, and I want to push them up. Now what's the width of these things? The height is 0.87, so I got to move it. And I only want to have, what is that? So I want to only have, so I 10 across, I move, I move 1, but I only have the ability to have 7 up. So if I divide that by 7, so calc 6 divided by 7, it's approximately 0.85 upwards. 0.85 is the amount of space I have. Okay. 0.85 up. Okay, let's see if that works. So I'm going to duplicate these, Control D, right? And I want all of these to be same positions, but on the z-axis, 0.85 up. So if I said 0.85, that's not quite right. So let's put it to 1 up. And I need 6 rows. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. It's going to be pretty tight with all those 6 rows. So what did I move it? 1. Okay, and then I want to Control D, So again, all those ones, Control D, and then let's move all those up to 2. And then let's grab all these. And then Control D. Let's move that down to -1. Then Control D. And then let's move that down to -2. How many do I have? 5? It's been pretty tight. Way too tight. I wonder if I can move the entire base down by 1. Let's look at it from the top perspective. Orthographic. I probably can move it down 1. Let's move this whole thing down by 1. So if I move it down by 1, the way to do this is to make an empty parent, create empty parent, right? And if I move this whole thing down by 1, that's up by 1. How about down by 1? -0.5. That's pretty good. Sorry, guys, talking to myself, but I'm just going to tell you all the numbers in a second. All right. And all I'm doing here is I'm trying to position the cards beforehand. Instead of me mathematically doing it with code, I'm just going to use spawn points, right? Where I'm just going to go boom. They're all going to go in one place, right? As opposed to me doing it in a different way. There's a lot of different ways to do this, right? You can randomly put them in. Who cares if they're on top of each other and stuff? But I care, right? So I want to make it so it's as accurate and as coordinated space as possible. And that's why I'm doing it this way. So then I'm going to take these top ones and then Control D. There we are, Control D. And these ones I'm going to move up to 3. That might be the most I can probably get out of them. You see? Let's run this thing and see how this looks on the table. This is crazy. Yeah, it looks pretty good, actually. That's what I'm talking about. That's hard. Right? That would be if you chose, hard level 6x6 matrix, 6x6, right? That's hard. And you'd have to match all these up and you have the same amount of time as everything else. That's what would happen. And of course, they would be flipped over the other way because that's how we're going to set it up, right? Nice, 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 nice. Okay, so now that we have those cards, we've tested those positions. We want to pull that out into world space. We have this game object, and I want to remove all this game object and take all these ones out without changing the positions. So this is what we do. So what I did was just a process. I measured the board. I tried to put cards together. I kind of figured out a rough location for everything of values. And then I used, best numbers that I had, right, to kind of partition how many cards could go, kind of horizontally and vertically, mapping out approximately the total number of cards for the game board. We were tight. Like for us to be like at 6x6, it's like almost the entire, table would be full of cards. So in real life, that would be a hard game, right? A real hard game. And what we want to do here now is I want to take all these and just put them under the spawn points. So nothing changes here, but then these values change, which is really what I wanted. So this game object can go away, delete. And then what I want is for each one of these things, I want to add an empty game object called a spawn point, right? And so that spawn point is something that I want to do. So if I hover over all these and select them, and if I say something like, I want to add an empty object, take a look, I add an empty object. It only happens in the last one. So like each one of these cards get an empty object, take a look, each one of them, right? So that's really interesting. And these empty objects that I have for all these cards are the ones that I really want. I really don't care about the other ones. I don't care about the cards. I just care about these empty objects, which is giving me a position for each one of these things in world space, or in, sorry, in relative to everything else. I'm just going to open these up for a second. And I could have done it step by step, but there's a lot of them. That's why I did it this way. And I just want to select all these ones. So they're all called game objects. You see what I'm going to do now. So these are all like little techniques. You might call them tricks, but if you've ever made spawn points before on a board, this is one way of doing it. These spawn points are invisible to the player, of course. So we're going to have all these, and I'm going to take all these spawn points and put them separate, like this. Right? These are all the different spawn points. And now one thing that we don't want is this. See how they lost, all of these lost, like, you know, positions are the exact same spot, minus 2.5, 7.5, and 2.5. It's not what I wanted. Undo. Because these ones are different. These positions are different. So club 2 is at 7.5 and 0.5. And if I take this one and kind of pull it out, this is at 0.5 and negative 0.5. That's what I want, right? So I want, instead of that, let's reselect all these just for a second, one more time. Because then it gives me the actual value. I just want the transforms. That's all I want. I want empty objects here, not cards. Cards would be bad. Now, there's another way to do it. I could, and that is another way to do it. Let me undo those changes. So there's the other way to do it is to not make them cards at all, but actually, you know, unpack completely, which is another way to do it. And then use the game object itself as the location, because I already have the game object. So maybe we'll do it that way. It might be less work actually than this. So sorry, let me just delete those again. What I mean is, I have all these cards in the right positions. What if I reposition all these cards here and I right click and I go something like unpack completely. So if I go to prefab and I go unpack completely, then each of the cards now become, you know, regular objects, right? They're not cards anymore. And then what I can do is I can remove the rigid bodies. So rigid bodies are gone. I can remove the colliders. I can remove the card script. I can remove the mesh renderer. I can remove the, the mesh filter, and I only have empty game objects, right? But with all the right positions, that's the great thing. And now I can rename these things something like spawn points, spawn point. And I can maybe call it something like card spawn point, card spawn point, like this. So that all of them now are card spawn points, and you can't see them, but I can make them visible by putting a little point on them like this. So you can change an icon to make them look like this. So you can see that in perspective mode, right? If I was to look at these things, then maybe we should see some of these card spawn points available to us to look at. And it's hard to see them because they are all in different spots, and I'm highlighting them all at the same time. One thing also that I want to do is I want to make a tag for them so we can identify them, we can find them. Make a tag for all these things called card spawn point, card spawn point. That's a tag. And then what I can do is I can select all of these things. Let's make the gizmo a little bigger. It's funny we can't see the gizmo for the card spawn point. It's like it's being hidden. Maybe we'll use a different color. Let's just change the color to red. Maybe make it like a name. Should be able to see them all. And we'll tag them all as spawn points. Let's see one. I can't see it, but it's there. Weird. Selection outline, 3D icons. Huh, that's weird. Doesn't matter. Anyways, we have all these card spawn points. Take a look. So these are all the card spawn points in the scene. These are them. And now they're in the exact right positions. So notice that there are at 0.5, -0.5, 1.5, 1.5, and you can see that they're all positioned, you know, in the right place for all the cards to come out. Yeah, that's where they are. And what we want to do is we want to select, you know, kind of a series of spawn points that are, you know, for each of the cards. So each of these spawn points would be for all the cards kind of in the game relative to where it's going to be, right? Maybe I jumped the gun and I could have named them differently, like the middle row, the top row, and so on, because right now it's hard to see the rows the way they are, right? So here's what it looks like from the top down view. Here we go. Here you can't see anything because they're just invisible, like, you know, kind of transforms. That's what they are. Again, really weird that you can't see them. That you can't see them at all, right? And I'm wondering, oh, that's why. Because they're inside of another thing. Let me just change that. Let me change these back to green dots or red dots. That's right. That's right. Okay. All right. I was losing it there for a second. I was like, something is wrong with these things. There we go. And that's what I wanted to do. And let's make these smaller so we can fade these down. But now we can actually select them all, right? So really what I want is for these icons here, right? So if we look at, you know, kind of each of these icons, then you can see that there'll be some card positions for a 4x4 matrix. And these are all the ones for a 6x6 matrix. These are the ones that I want. So this is like, I can kind of allocate them and name them as different spawn points, right? And this is kind of a location that I want for each of these things to be, right? Each of these spawn points is where I'm going to load a list of spawn points. And these list of spawn points is going to be for a 4x4, a 6x6, or whatever. Okay, that's what it's going to be like. So, so there's some strategies here. So one, this is like for everything. And if you notice here, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to put my 4x4 or my easy one, because easy one is 2x4. I want to put it right here in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this one, this spawn point, which is this one, should be the card spawn point. That's my 2x4. So again, this is like, I can just call that, you know, 2x4. So just to name it, 2x4, right? That's a 2x4. And so this is the second 2x4. This is where those are going. I'm just going to show you this so that way you can see how I'm thinking. Right, so that's this one. 2x4. And what's this one? Is that another one? That's the one. So these are the first row. This is kind of like the middle row for my 2x4. All right, so 2x4 is there. And then I want to do the other row. So this is 4, and this is another one. So it's the other one there. So 2x4. Two by 4. 2x4. Wait, that's incorrect. No, so 2x4 is here and here. What's this one? Here, that's 1. 2x4. They're kind of in a wacky order, but I don't know why. And that one. It's the way they appeared. Okay, so those are all the 2x4s, right? That they're the 2x4 means that's the easy matrix. That's where they're all going to appear, right? Where I mark them as 2x4. And then I want to mark the other ones for the medium one. And I believe that's like 4x4, if I'm not wrong. Let's make sure. I'm gonna go to my document here, pull that up, 4x4, yeah. So that means that we can kind of include the other ones, like these ones and these ones in my 4x4. So that's something that's going to be there, 4x4 up here and there. So let's like mark them out. So we're going to say that that's not one, that's not one, that's not one. No, that is one. That's 4x4. It's 4x4. Huh? No. 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 Yes. Okay, so here is, okay, so does anyone not understand what I'm doing? Good. As long as you guys understand, that's important. No, 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 no. So make sure that they're all edges. Wonderful. Okay, so then just to make sure these are fours, these are four. So these are the other matrices, and these ones here are ones that I can use for the other ones. Okay, so strategies. Now that I've, what time is it? Man, it's 12:27 already. This is how it goes, right? So now that I've isolated my spawn points, you know, for the cards, right? Then I can use a deal function to kind of randomly deal all of these out, and we're almost there. I just need to, I can do my 6x6, no problem, but I have to think about how to do my 4x4 and my other ones. So, so these ones, I'm just going to mark these as 6x6s just to be clear. And the reason why I want this is because all of them will be marked as 6x6 anyway. And what I want to do, I want to create in my game controller a bunch of lists of positions, of lists of transforms, right? That is going to basically, let's just copy this. Let's actually do all of these all together. I want a list of transforms that I can accomplish. So then I can say all of these positions are for 2x4. All of these positions are for 4x4. All of these cards are for 6x6, right? And that means inside of my game controller, I need another list, 3 lists that I want to have. List of transforms that I want to have them when depending on the difficulty that I've selected, I'm going to spawn this many cards and they're going to go in these positions. Okay, watch. So now that I've got those, I'm going to go back to my code. And inside of my game controller here, then I want to have some public lists, 3 public lists. So public list of type transform, okay, components, which I'm going to call my 2x4 lists. So we can't start it with that. So, I mean, if I say 2x4 like this, right? You can't do that because 2x4 doesn't compute from a list. So you say something like 2x4 layout, right? And then I'm gonna have a public list of types transform, which is my 4x4 layout. 4x4 layout. Oops. And then I'm going to do a public list of transform, which is going to be my 6x6 layout. 6x6 layout. Okay. 6x6 layout. And once I have these in there in place and they're up here, then what I can do is I have these available here. Notice that they are available here inside of my game controller. So there are little lists that I can put in there, and I can grab my 2x4s. So all of these, and kind of all of these. And what I can do is you can lock the thing that you're looking at. So if I go to my game controller, I can lock my game controller so that it doesn't move. And I can just select all the ones I want to make references to all the 2x4s that I want. And I can drag this into this, right here, which actually adds a list of 8 positions from my 2x4 cards. These are all the cards that are going to be in place. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my 4x4 layout. So I'm going to grab all the cards from my 4x4 layout. Again, I've locked this game controller so it doesn't move. And then I can select all of these objects, and then I can drag and drop it in here. There's my 4x4 layout, right? But it also includes my 2x4 layout. So I can say my 4x4 layout and my 2x4 layout is going to be used, all of that. But I'm just going to make it simple and just copy all those in there too, because it also includes all of these, right? So kind of include those. There's 16 cards, 4x4, right? My 2x4 and my 4x4, they all get included. And then for my 6x6, we just include it all. Just make it easy. So that'll be 36 cards, right? All right, so this is all my layouts. I have it in my spawn points. We can hide them away, so we don't have to see them anymore, right? And the great thing about this is now that I have those, I can make a deal function, and the deal function can basically deal them and just kind of spawn them in place, instantiate the cards, or remove the cards from the deck and put them in place inside of, depending on the layout. So, so let's do this. I need to have a way of popping a card off the deck, and we already have that. I know I'm going overboard, guys, overtime. So please bear with me. Standard deck is of type stack. We've kind of built that in from the very beginning, the stack, right? I'm going to save everything here. And I'm also going to save the scene here. And I'm also going to save the project because I don't want to lose it. So the way it works is I already have the ability for me to pop a card off the deck, right? Pop a card off the deck. And it's just a matter of how many cards I want to pop off the deck and where are they going to go, all right? So these guys are killing me with these messages. Let me just remove myself from Teams right now because they're just like being recorded. Quit. Goodbye, Teams. All right. Whew, man. All right. So the way it works is in my game controller script, then if I go back to my game controller script, I already have that capability. I've made a new deck. I've done that. And what I want to do is I want to have, depending on I can go case. One thing we also need is a reference to the UI controller. So I need that too. So kind of a public, kind of UI controller. We'll call it UI controller, right? UI controller. And the reason why I need a reference to this, because the UI controller also has the information about which one I've selected. So I can sit there and say, so let's make that reference. So say UI controller, I'll do it up here, is equal to get components, because it's inside of this game object, UI controller. That's what that is. So I have a reference to it now. That script is what that is inside of the game controller script. And then I can say that case, so switch case, switch. If I want to do the UI controller, switch UI controller dot difficulty, whatever the difficulty that was selected in the UI controller for when the game started, or when the game is selected, when the game is started, right? As an example, it's going to have a default difficulty, right? And depending on when I press the button, then the difficulty when I press start is going to select whatever this thing is, right? So for now, what we're going to do is we're just going to put it in here to show you how it works. So I'm going to say here's a case, switch case, where case the difficulty is easy, then and case we might have to move this somewhere else, the difficulty is normal, then do something, and case if the difficulty is hard, then do something else. So that's kind of a little switch case. It's like an if else, if else, if. That's kind of what that is. And when the difficulty is easy, I want to pop, 4 or 8 cards off the stack. And by the way, you can use curly braces here as well, which is kind of interesting. And I'm doing this for a couple of reasons, right? Where we can have these curly braces are almost like a little, scope, where I can say, I want to do a for each loop, and I want to go into the deck collection, and I want to pop off from the deck collection a series of cards. So for every, actually, instead of for each, I want to do a for loop. Say that again. For loop. And I'm going to say for I is to the deck dot count for whatever the number of cards in the deck. Right? For every number of cards in the deck, what I want to do is I want to kind of deal. Well, actually, it's actually from here to 8. I only need 8 cards because 2 by 4. So for 8 cards, I want to take the first 8 cards and pull them off the stack. So I want to say that I want to go deck.pop, right? And notice it produces a game object when I do this, deck.pop. And if I hover over, it returns the game object that's here, right? And then I can say that, kind of something like var card is equal to, I'm going to pop this off. And then I want to activate the card. So I want to say something like card.setActive to true, right? And I want to flip the card. So I want to say something like card dot flip. I want to flip the card. So now this is something where, the card itself is an object that I'm popping off the deck, but it's a game object. And what I can say is it's a game object, but it's also a card. So card dot get components, you can say, and it's the card. And then you can say dot flip, because you're using the cards script to enact the flip of this thing. That's what you can do, flip it. And then what we want to do is we want to put it in place inside of the list using this list of 2 by 4s, right? So here's how it's really interesting. So I want to say that the list of transforms is where I want it. So I want to say 2 by 4 layout, and then we're going to say that that's where it's going to go. 2 by 4 layout oops. And that is going to be the position of the cards. So I want to say card.transform dot position is going to be equal to the 2 by 4 layout dot position. So that's going to be where the card goes, right? So I've activated it, I put the card in, and it flips down. Let's see how this works. It should be automatic. I'm just going to do this one case, and so to give you a sense of how this works. Okay, and if it doesn't work, we'll know, we can troubleshoot, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's see that. So save. And then let's run the game. And without pressing any buttons yet, we're going to be doing this. And right. This is what the game looks like. Take a look at that. But it flipped it over, and I don't want that. I want this to be flipped down. So let's maybe, what do we do to make those cards come down last time? Did we just do this? I think we just did this, right? Because by default, they start off as already flipped, correct? Huh. What did I do? I said that card dot is face up is equal to false. Maybe it's that I have to do. Just one sec. We had this problem last time. But notice what it did. It actually dealt the cards, but we have to deal them the other way. We want to flip the cards over, right, to what they're supposed to be. And in the card structure, right? Why this is happening is because when I flip, then notice is face up is not is face up, right? And because normally they're face up, and what we're doing is in the update function, that's when it changes color, right? That's when it happens. So I just want to make sure that's what is happening here. So it says that I want to flip it. Here's the ternary operator is face up, is not is face up. It starts off as my is face up value. Do not make them all turned over. We can make that happen really quickly to make it really stupidly easy. I'm going to go into my prefabs and let's just make sure that what the value is here for each of these things, just making sure. Is face up. Well, they're all unchecked. Let's say if they're all checked, and then if I click is face up by default, so I've kind of set those values, then if I press play, what happens? Not yet. And let's do a flip. Sorry, one sec here. Game controller dot flip. Why is not working? Okay. Right? So now we have random cards, and this is part of the game where I can go, okay, I want to choose this one and this one. Well, they don't match. And I want to choose this one and this one, but they don't match. And I want to choose this one and this one, but they don't match. And I want to choose this one and this one, and they don't match. None of them match. And the reason why none of them match, because we chose the top 8 cards, but we don't want this. What we want instead is we only choose the top 4 cards, and we want to duplicate them, you know, kind of thing across those areas, because we're playing the memory game. This is if I wanted to randomly deal 8 random cards, like 8 different cards. I don't want 8 different cards. I want 4 cards because we have a 2x4, and I want to be able to select for the memory game 2 random cards. So let's redo that. So I want to say something like, yes, we're going to do a for loop of this, but I'm only going to pop off for every 2. I'm going to pop off those cards, and I'm going to make a copy of them in the scene. So it's going to look like that. So I'm going to go 8 cards. This is the 2x4 layout. That's the position. That's what this for loop is going to be for the layout. So we can change this. We can say that refactor rename. We're going to change this to the layout position, layout index. We'll call this. So we know what that is, the layout index, right? And so for the layout index, that's going to be doing that. But what I want to do is I want to pop for every other one of these. I want to pop a card off and generate that same card, that same random card off the top. So I want to pop that card off. We're going to set active as true, but we're only going to do it 4 times instead of 8. So again, I want you to think about this. How would we pop it off? And remember, we want random positions. If I do it like this, I want to kind of shuffle them where they're going to be on the game board, right? So really, let's undo that change. Nope, I want to redo. Really, I want to keep it to 4, right? And when I pop up these cards, I want to set them active as true, right? And before we do this part, let's comment this out. I want to duplicate these cards, right? And shuffle them in a random location, almost like a list of random locations. It's going to be done as an example inside of this case. It's almost like I'm going to make a brand new list. So a var, we're going to say random locations, right? And that's going to be equal to a list, a new list of transforms. That's what it's going to be, a new list of transforms. And what I want is this random location to be a sample of my 2x4 layout. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to say something like random locations. Well, let's generate the random locations. So I'm going to say that my list of transforms, a new list of empty transforms, but I want basically for each transform to be equal to a random spot, right, on the list. So now this is something that's interesting. I need to almost like shuffle the positions, the stuff that I want, and I only have 8 positions. So I have 8 positions, and I'm going to randomly put stuff in different spots, and they can't overlap. So once that position's gone, it's gone, right? So I want to say something like, and this is something else I can do. Instead of doing it this way, I can just, here's something. I'm just trying to think about this really random. I want to duplicate these twice. So when I can take these cards and put them in play twice, right? And then once I put these cards in play twice, I'm duplicating them. So how do I do that? Let's randomly generate these cards, and I need them to be put in a spot, some kind of random location, right? When I'm doing this stuff. So we could, once I generate a card, I can put it in 2 separate spots, 2 random spots in the 2x4 layout. So let's try that. So I want to say in the 2x4 layout, it's kind of a different, really random brute force way of doing it. I can say something like var random range. So random position is equal to a random range from 0 to 9, right? Because it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, not including 9, right? And that is the random position that I'm going to take every single time I roll. And what I want to do is, so random first position and random second position. And then if it's not true, then I want to randomly roll again, like that kind of thing. So let's try this out. So I'll say something like, so my random first position, let's just put this in, and I want to put a random second position. Random second position, right? And what I want to do is when I randomly roll these things, when I want to be able to do it, keep looping until it finds a random position to go to. I mean, I could do that. I could say, so I generate a card, and then I want to find a random position to put it in, right? And then if that position is taken already, if there's already a card there, like if it's full, kind of thing, I don't want to put my card there already, right? So some trickiness, right, of how to do this, right? So let's think about this. So again, random first position, 0 to 9, random second position, 0 to 9. And then what I want to do is I want to say something like my card transform that position is equal to the 2x4 layout. Instead of it going in the I, it's going to be to the random first position. Okay. There it is, random first position. And then I want to duplicate this thing. So var card is equal to deck. And I want to say that, so we can rename this thing. So refactor rename. Again, I'm just coding it to make it work. I'm sorry I'm going over time, but if you have to go, it is what it is. I will say first card, right? And then if I do it again, I want the second card, var second card. I don't want to pop it off the deck. I want to copy the first card. So I want to say that it is, I want to instantiate the second card, the first card. I want to make a copy of it, instantiate the first card, right? And I want the second card I want these to transform dot set parent. We got to do that too. To the card parent. So I need a reference to the card parent here. So public transform. We'll call this the card parent. Card parent. And we'll say that in the start method that card parents is equal to game objects dot find, and then square brackets cards, if I'm not wrong, that's what we called them, dot transform. And we can say that set parent to card parent, because we need to do that. We're making a copy, right? Card parent. There we go. And then once we've made a copy, we've instantiated it, we've duplicated it, we flipped it, we made a copy of it. and we want to take that second card and put it into the random second position. Random second card. Transform position is equal to the random second position. Okay, but the random second position and the random first position cannot have a card in there already, right? So if it does, re-roll. That's what we want to do. We want to be able to re-roll. For now, I just want to make it work, right? So I want to see if it messes up. I'm okay with it messing up because I just want it to just do that, see how good we get. It's going to be wrong right now, okay? But it's almost like I want to, the other way to do it is to have a group of positions in its own queue, and I pop off that position, right? And that position is going to be the thing that's left, right? So I only have X number of positions left, right? And so I remove that position as a possibility, right? Right now I'm just randomly rolling from any two positions, and I just want to start with this. So again, go back to this, and it's thinking. Roll. And let's see what it does. Does it actually do what I want it to do? So bam, that's good. So what it did was it kind of put it inside of a random spot. And it also crashed-a-rama, crashed, right? Let's see what it did. So kind of weird. These ones are okay, but this one is not, right? And we can see the ones that are in play because these are all the ones that are turned on. So this one, you know, as an example, and this one. So we have, and by the way, we're looking at the game board wrong again. Should be looking at it down this way. Okay. And so we've got this one, and I'm just going to make sure that that is the right thing. So we got this one, this one, this one. I don't know how this way came here, but these ones are in the wrong spot. This one's in the right spot. This one's in a different spot. This is a clone, and this is a clone. They're in the same spot. Or where is that one? Is that there? It is. So they're in the same spot, and this one's in the same spot. Okay. So that's what we've done. We've done it, but some bad things happened because we're looking at random positions, and really what we have is a 2x4 layout, and the 2x4 layout we want to transfer into a some kind of stack of cards that I want to pop off. When I use it, it's gone, and so I get the next stack, the next one, wherever it's going to be. And I could also just remove a random item, you know, from the random range. So I can say remove an item. Like if I did something like that, where I said something like you know, 2x4, if I say as an example, the 2x4 layout dot, if I go remove, and I remove as an example, an item like, you know, depending on the index, let's say, for example, a random range of 0 to 9, however many there are left, then what it does is remove that one, but it also doesn't give me a reference. I need a reference to this thing. So if I use this as a remove, if I remove that, that possibility, so I can't respawn at that possibility anymore. So that's kind of something that what I want to do, right? And I want to be able to do that because when I spawn those, instead of doing a random position, I want to be able to only have, you know, kind of the whatever the positions are left. I want to put them in the right spots. Okay, so these are the positions. We have 2x4 layout. Those are the transforms. And so what I can do is I can go and, you know, simply put them in a queue or something like that. And I want to kind of pop it off the queue or pop it off the stack. And then whatever those are is how I can put them in. We could also do a shuffle where I can shuffle the positions in a random spot in the queue. So maybe do another a 2x4 layout, but do a random shuffle, right? So they're not in the exact same spots all the time, because we don't want it to be linear, like they're next to each other or something, right? All the time. So we want some kind of randomization, is what I'm saying, right? So again, what I probably want to do is we could create again a kind of we'll call this like random positions, which would be a var. We'll make it a list of transforms, which is kind of like random positions, right? And then what we want is that is going to be equal to, well, we'll make it almost like a copy of whatever we have in our 2x4 layouts. We'll say 2x4 layout dot, and I want to be able to you know, kind of make a reference to this, but I want to make a copy of it. So I want to clone my list. That's what I want. It's almost like I want to clone this, right? And so how do I clone a list? I was going to try and do that. So if I looked it up, and this is kind of part of the list class, so you can see that I can copies the entire list T to a compatible one-dimensional array, starting at the beginning. I can also copy the entire list to a compatible one-dimensional array. I can find, these are all the things that it can do, right? Get type, but I want to be able to clone the object. Now I can definitely put it to an array, but an array is not going to help me. I want to clone a list. That's what I want to be able to do. And I could kind of reach out to do that. There's my copy to, copies the entire list to a compatible one-dimensional array. So that is probably the closest that I can do. Let's see if I can do that. So if I say something like, well, I want my list of type transforms, which I'm going to call my random positions, that's going to be equal to my 2x4 layout dot, so copy to, and I want to copy to, I wonder if I can copy to this random positions thing. Just a second. See if I can do that. Is that even compatible to array? I don't think I can do that. I'm gonna have to run through a list of them. So let's make it so it's going to be a brand new list. Okay, and then I'm going to do a for loop, right? So I'm going to go up for each list in the 2x4 layout, for each position. For each position in the 2x4 layout, or each transform in the 2x4 layout, then what I want to do is I want to say that my random positions is going to be equal to random positions is equal to the position, right? But I want to copy it. How do I clone that? Because it's a transform. I do a new I don't think I can do a new transform. It won't allow me to do a new transform. Transform positions. So if I do random positions dot add, and I want to add in, but it's going to be actually a reference. Can I do a new transform? I can't do that. I can do a new rect transform. I want to almost like copy the transforms, right? Or maybe we can do is we can randomize the order of the transforms, just like we've done the order of everything else. So the order in the list is the order that we put them in, but then this way we can randomly put the order of the transforms in the 2x4 layout, which we can get from the standard deck, the shuffle method, which is this method right here. The shuffle method, right? For every card, right? What we want to do is I want to shuffle each of the objects within itself. So something that looks like this, right? Okay, that's actually probably better. Let's try that. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud here. And this is, did I make a for each loop for that? A for loop. Okay. So I can do that. I can say 4. And what we want to do is go from I to the upper part of the 2x4 layout.count. And I want to say that just like I did before, if I said var temp is equal to the 2x4 layout I, and then I want to get, just like we did before, a random index, which is something I need to do. It's almost like a copy of all this. Let's do this whole thing. Actually, just copy this whole thing for a second. It's almost like a shuffle method that I can do. And I can probably do that right here, but just copy it and change the, instead of card prefabs, we want to do 2x4 layouts like this. So if I do those, that shuffles the layout where they are inside of the list. And so this is a little shuffle method that I can extract. So I can say shuffle item, but for now, let's leave. I just want to make it work one time. So now that I shuffle it, I shuffle those items. And I want to choose, it's almost like I need to know if that item is filled or not, if it has a child. So I check to see, what I can do is I can make a script to check to see if that thing has something in there, like a transform card that belongs to that item. And if there's nothing in the transform, then, go to the next one, as an example. So what I mean is each one of these things that I made, these spawn points, they're dumb, right? I could make a little script that keeps track of if they have a child or not, right? But really, it's just me checking. I can say, does this spawn point have a child? If it doesn't, then it's an okay spawn point. If it does, go to the next one. So try it again, right? So, and that's might be a array. So this randomizes where, that's what that does. And then what I can do is the next for loop for my next trick, which doesn't seem to be working very nicely. I make my first card, I make my second card, and instead of getting a random position, I choose the spawn points at random anyway, and that is the way we're going to do them, maybe next to each other, because the random spawn points are going to be different spots. Then maybe I've already done the work. Let's try this out, see how random it is. So my 2x4 layout, then what I want to do is I want to put in, can kind of work. So if it's 0, it's 0 and 1. If it's 1, so I make the cards, pop the cards off the stack, and I want to put them in different spots. And it's almost like every other one I want to move. So let's do this again, 8, but I only want to pop off every other one. So if I %2 is equal to, let's try this. So say if I %2 is equal to 0, that means every 2 cards, for every 2, then what I want to do is do all this. So it's 0 divided by 2 is 0. Every other card, every other one, every other one. And this would be I. And this would be I plus 1, right? I plus 1. I'll start at 0. If I is equal to 0, or if I is %2 is equal to 0, then pop the card off, pop the second card off. The first one goes into I, the second one goes into I plus 1. That might be good. Let's see. And or we're going to get a bunch of null references, one of the two. No, those are good. So then I can go this one and this one, and this one and this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And there's some duplication. It's easy, right? Because you're going to go here, they're the same. And these are the same, but these aren't. Okay, let's try it again. So there's only 4 of them. So that's why we did it. So this one and this one, this one, this one, they're together. Oh. Okay. Seems to be working. So it looks like it's working good, actually. Right? Works great. Okay, so that is my first iteration. So now I'm going to put this up on GitHub. So again, file save project. And just to show you my insanity a little bit and what I was thinking. So if my cards, as an example, you know, is the difficulty is easy, then what we do is we get a list. Did I even use this random positions thing? I don't think I did. I don't even need this list. I actually did it in place, which is pretty cool. So I have a for loop that runs through each of the 2x4 layouts. And then what happens is for each of these 2x4 layouts, I randomly mix. This is the swap that swaps out and shuffles the locations. That's what it does. So it's the order of the locations inside of the list. The locations are the same, but it just swaps out the items so that they have a different order. That's all it is every single time, right? And then what I do is I run through this thing and I say, well, look, for every starting at 0, I pop the first one off, copy it, and then put it in another spot. That's what I'm doing. Copy the second one in another spot. And then what I'm doing with the second one is I put it in the other layout. That's what I'm doing here. Okay, now here are the difficulties that I'm going to encounter. And I'm just going to go into my inside here and just put it up on GitHub for a second so I can share this with you so you have everything that I have. And then I'll talk about, I'm way over time, but it is what it is, git commit -m, and I'll say else normal difficulty, git push. So that's me dealing the cards in a normal kind of configuration. That's what this is, right? But remember, the button is going to be pressed, and depending on what has been selected, that is when it's going to start. And here, it's only going to happen once. So even if I start the game and press the button, this is only going to happen once. I'm almost like going to listen for the start event to occur. It's almost like this stuff has to happen in the start event of the UI controller, not inside the start event of my game controller. Okay, so just to show you what this is. So what I want to do is do some of the same stuff here, but in the UI controller, because the on start button press is when I'm going to do that selection, right? So this is where it needs to be. I just put it here to get it going. Okay. All right, so let's grab all of this and let's transfer it over to the other side. So I'm going to go and grab all this, cut it, put it into the UI controller inside of here, paste it. There's going to be errors, and that's okay, because what this is going to mean is I need a reference to the game controller. So this is going to be the other way around. So I'm going to say public game controller. Call this game controller. And we're going to say that game controller is find object, find get component. So game controller is equal to get component game controller, which is going to get the game controller component inside of the same object. That's what it's going to do. So then I don't need to do this anymore because the UI controller is going to give me this. So I have this piece, and UI controller is going to be just difficulty now. So I can just kind of shut this off. 2x4 layout is the game controller's 2x4 layout. So I can say game controller dot 2x4 layout. You can see that I can get that, and I can just do the same thing here. It's a little bit long, but it works. Right, that takes care of that. Card parents, that's in the game controller, but I can put it actually here. So I can say that in the game controller, I can move the card parents and away. So cut that out and put that in the UI controller here. And then I can do the same thing by moving the reference. To the card controller transform. I can make that happen here. That's where that happens. This part should stay. This part should stay in the game controller. That should be here. I instantiate the deck for the first time. That just makes all the magic happen. We don't want to put that in the UI controller. But what I do want is when I pop the deck off, that's coming from the game controller. So the game controller itself, I'm going to say game controller.pop. And why? Because the game controller has that as private. We can make that as public. There we go. That's going to help. We don't need a reference to the UI controller. That we don't need. So that's what it looks like right now. Save. Go back to the UI controller, and I can still do this one. So I can go to game controller dots. Just want to make it work as is. There we go. So that's all of this. That's for everything that we want in the in this part. And I want to duplicate this, but it's going to be very similar. So how this is going to work is if it's easy, it's going to do this. When I press the start button, it's going to do all of this for the first time. Save. And then let's go into, so clear this up. And where's the error? Oh yeah, it's right here. So 2x4 layouts. And here, I want to grab all that, just making sure there's no more errors left. I'm just refactoring at this point, right? So that's going to look like this on 2 lines, so you can see it. That's the swap. I'm going to make this shuffle or whatever in a second. It's going to be a function. But for now, so when I press the start button, I switch this difficulty, depending on what the difficulty is. If it's easy, I'm going to do that randomization of my 2x4 count and then make 8, whatever. I'm going to go through 8 iterations and pop those off and put them in the next spots from my 2x4 layout. And I can probably make this into a function if I'm careful. All right. But so we can iterate and talk about how many there are. Right. So then save. And what I want to do is try it the way it is. Let's see if I can try it now with the new layout. I just moved it into the button. So clear and press play. And now if I press the button for the first time, it should do all my magic. So start, right? I can do that. Right? And so you can see if I can remember the memory game. Good. That's the shuffle and deal method. Nice. And then I can do the same thing, but the normal is going to look almost identical to this, except it's going to have instead of my 2x4 layout, it's going to have my other kind of layout and that kind of stuff. So I want to do all of this case here, all of this case inside of its own function. So I'm going to say something like refactor, extract method, and I'm going to call this function. There we go. And notice I have 2 I's in here, but I'm just going to, for now, I'm just going to extract the function. right? This new method, I didn't call it anything, but I'm going to call it something like deal, kind of a, kind of the deal method. That's what it's going to be called. And the deal method that I'm going to put here, right? What it's going to do is it's going to take a couple of parameters. So the layout, which is the list of transforms. So I need the layout. So I need a list of transforms that I'm going to call the layout, right? And I also need, that's the transform layout. The game controller is going to be there. The random index is going to be there. Oh yeah, this one. The number of cards in the layout. So this is the card number, because that's going to be the thing I need. So I'm going to say that that is an integer we're going to call card number. I need that too. That's going to go in here, right? And everything else I think is good to go. Seconds. 2x4 layout. That's going to be this layout here. That's going to go in there. And I'm talking to myself. Yay, 2x4 layout, that counts. 2x4 layout, that's going to be there. Game controller, swapping those things out. And we're good to go. Yeah, that's all I need. So card number. So the way this would work then is for this layout, this would be the 2x4 layout, 2x4. So it's going to be game controller dot 2x4 layout. And then the other one would be the card count, which would be 8. I need 8 cards. And then the way it would work is I would replace all of this by layout. So anytime I say game controller 2x4 layout, I would replace that by layout. And you're going to see how beautiful this is going to be in a second, where you're going to be fascinated by this insane code that I've written. You're going to see how I simplify in a second. Okay, there it is. I'm joking. And layout, 2x4 layout, that's all this. And much more simplified. Instantiate, card parent, transform, second. Okay, good. Yeah, it looks all good to go, except for this part. And this part is going to be the card number, the number of cards. That's this, but that's going to be a different loop. And that looks good. That looks good. The card layouts, I think nothing is specific anymore. It's all general. Card parent, same. Game controller deck pop. Yep, it is. All right, so then all I have to do is deal 2x4 layout, or I can deal and I don't need these curlies anymore because I've dealt with the problem, which is the scope. So it's going to even be simpler than what we saw before. So, right. And this will be, instead of a 2x4 layout, this would be a 4x4 layout. And the 4x4 layout is going to have 16, 8, 16, yep, 16 cards. And the hard layout is going to be a 6x6 layout with 36 cards. Right? And that's going to be that. And that should be good, my friends. Let's see how this works in this insanity. We've taken almost an extra hour to do it, but it's a bit of code that I'm going to share with you to help you. The other stuff that you're going to do is easier because you're going to compare values. And I think this will be much easier if this works. Let's see if this works. So we'll go here and we'll press play. Now let's see how this works. So we're making a little game. And if I choose normal and I click start, then 4x4 layout, right? I know, I thought, well, I wanted to make it easier, right? So that's not so crazy. So now I can sit there and say, well, these two, okay, and then whatever the next part of your game would be, okay, well, if I don't select the two that are the same, flip them back over. If I select to do the same, remove the cards, which you can do, and then add some points right to the scene, right? So that's kind of how it would work. And now let's try it again. Let's try with a 6x6 layout. So we're going to go to play, and instead of a 2x4 or a 4x4, let's go with a 6x6, and then click start, and bam, right? That's what I'm talking about. Take a look. So now this is really hard because I would choose 2 cards and then try and remember this. That's impossible, right? So they would flip back over, right? And then I would choose another one. So this one and this one. And then I would totally forget what those are, and they'd flip back over. And then this one and this one. And then those would flip back over. And this one and this one. I thought they were the same, but they would flip back over. And you can see how hard this is. And this one, Jack, and this one. Ooh, I thought I saw that somewhere. Is it here? Oh, wait. Oh, no, different Jack, right? And then this one and this one, and you would have to go through, and then you would definitely die. If I didn't do 3 matches, that'd be crazy. That'd be brutal, right? So wait, so that one, wow, it's really hard. So that's like super hard. And then what if I click start again? Well, that's going to make another set, which is another set on top of these ones. And so I can start playing start, and I keep adding them, and there's going to be a point where there's no more left, because I can't do 36, 36, 36, not that many cards in the deck, right? But so now we need a reset button to reset the cards back to the way they were. That's also going to be tricky. So let's put this up on GitHub, because this is the next iteration of my code, right? So again, we're going to say save all, view terminal, and we're going to go git commit -m, and we'll say added or updated or added, sorry, I'll say added deal method in UI controller. Hit push. And that the reason why we want to do this is because now I can disperse the cards, but how do I reset everything? Because that's also something that's tough to do. And that's the last thing I'll do, guys. I think I've done mostly everything you need to get going. And then you need to do the other meat of the code itself, which is not extremely difficult, but it gives you a sense of all the stuff that we can do with just shuffling around lists and working with collections and something visual with Unity, an actual demonstration of how this would work in the game, where you can't really think this stuff so easily, right? The main meat of it is this part, right? Where how did I come up with the deal method, right? First, I came up with a base case, and then I replaced the specific, kind of layouts with a layout object, right? And then I can pass the layout object in there. And once I pass the layout object in there, it's going to iterate across the object and randomize the positions. That's what it's going to do. And then I'm going to grab the same 2 cards and lay them out in those random positions wherever they are, because even if they're right next to each other, they're actually in a different spot, right? So that's kind of how that works. And that's the difficulty. Now, how do I clean it up, right? Because that's the next part. So that would be another button press event. Let's do that. And the cleaning up is just as bad in many ways as this one. So this is where I'm going to stop. Okay, so I'm going to say on, we'll call it the reset button pressed. So what happens when I want to restart or reset? I want to reset the button. And I think that's what I asked you guys to do. I said, player can select 2 cards on the table. This is you to do. The 2 cards match, that's you to do. If the player matches all the pairs of the cards on the table with 1 lay. If the player fails to match, then, fail to match, some kind of feedback. You can use a label for that or some kind of object. If the player fails to match 3 times, the game is over, and the label appears, informs the player, says, hey, game is over. A user interface element or a button to reset the game. This is what we're going to do right now. Okay. Things that we haven't done mouse clicks and those kind of things. Those are for you to do. Those are easy to do. But resetting the game is the reset button. And we need an event, which we just added. And I also need a user interface item in here, which is something I'm going to put in the game now. So again, I'm going to go back to the canvas. And I'm going to frame the canvas in there. Okay, and I'm just going to go into 2D mode so I can see the canvas. And what I want to do here is I want to put a restart button or reset button. So I'm going to grab this button and I'm going to duplicate it. So Control D, duplicate, and we'll call this the reset button. Reset button. And the reset button should have a different color, it should look different, right? So what, first of all, it should say reset in here. And let's also move the button down. So we're going to move the button kind of down in here. Again, let's give it a real value, -130, which would be the same way. It's still kind of on the top left corner of the screen. There's the reset button. And then what we want to do is change these colors. So maybe make it green. So maybe make it so that we'll leave these the way it is, but I'm just choose a green color. It's kind of some kind of maybe not. Yeah, maybe that color. It's a group of colors that's over here. So that's the color, and I'll do the same thing. So that's pretty good. Reset. And I'll do the same thing with this, where I'll kind of just swing this over here. And this one I'll swing over here. And this one I'll swing over here. And everything else the same. So if I check it, and this one can't be the same thing. It's got to look at the UI controller, and I got to use the on reset button pressed. I'm just choosing a different method for the reset button. And then if I go and play, we should be able to reset it back at any time by clicking this button. There we go. So reset's done. So the reset button is there. Save. So we'll say, we'll push this up. So I'm going to go back to Unity, to this one, and I'm just going to go View, and I'll go to Terminal, and we'll say that we added the reset button. So git add dot, git commit -m. Say added reset button, git push. There we go. So that pushes up that to GitHub, which gives us a reset button. And now the challenge. So what do I do to reset? Well, I need to remove all the items in my game, and I need to reset my stuff and do all those kind of crazy things that we said before, right? So one of the things that we want to do is remove all the items that are in the game right now from the transform. So I'm going to loop through, depending on what the difficulty setting is. Actually, you know what we should do? We just loop through all of them. So we say something like, for each item in my game controller, for each in my game controller dot 6x6 layout, right? So for each, I'll say child in my transform, for each transform child, now for each transform, so we'll call this like spawn point, for each spawn points in my game controller 6x6 layout, which is a transform type, that's what it is. I want to take that spawn point dot, and I want to, for every child, I want to detach all the children. So I want to go to get child counts. Child counts is greater than 0. Spawn point child count. If spawn point child count is greater than 0, so if I have more than 0 children, if it has something in there, then I want to go to that spawn point dot get childs at 0, the first child, get it, and I want to destroy that child. So I want to destroy my robots, destroy that child, which should remove the child this is the first part, which is removing all the children from the scene. And that's what their on reset button press will do. So go through and destroy all the children from the scene, but not kill the spawn point, not the spawn point, but each of its children. Let's see if this works. So save and play. And that's only if you can do it anytime you want, because it shouldn't, if it doesn't have any children, the reset will do nothing, right? But if I have children, and if I click reset, it should just destroy these objects. And it did not destroy these objects. So what did it do? So UI reset button pressed, right? Destroy spawn point, get child 0. Oh, get child game object. Let's try that again. The game object that's attached to the child, that is the child, not the child, but the game object. Run. So if I start and if I click reset, child that belongs to, do I have any children though? Am I not attaching them? Not attaching them. Well, the other way is any active objects in the scene. Could do that. And the other thing is I have my cards, just a second. So what I've done is, that's why it's not working. So if I click start, I instantiate them, they're inside the cards array. What I really want to do is just go through the cards and remove them all. Let's get rid of them all, right? All right. So that's what I want to do. So don't do this. Sorry, no. That's in card parent. Card parent. For each card in card parent, and there's some stuff that's inside of the thing, and then we want to pop all those cards off. So we want to clear the list somehow, right? Which, do I have that in standard deck? Standard deck, I have a shuffle. I have a clear. And clear, what it does, it changes the object that's part of the stack, right? Because I'm actually going to go shuffle and then initialize, and then for a card and card prefabs, and then I want to add push. Yes, I want to clean. I want to clean for each card in this, destroy. So I want to clean the cards that are there, destroy those cards. So that's one thing I need to do. I need to go to, before I do that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to say that for each card that's left over in the parent, then I want to destroy the card, right? And for every card in the card parent, and that's for every card parent is, there's one card parent, and then for every child, transform, say childs, transform childs. For every transform child in the card parent, right? Then I want to kill that child dot game object. Okay, that's what it's going to do. But before I do that, I want to go through and then I want to do clean. So I want to say on reset pressed, I want to, let's just destroy first. So we're going to go game controller dot deck dot clean. Clean. What to do the clean function? Why is the clean function not available? Because I made the clean function private. We should make this public. Public goes through each card, and this destroys the card and clears the deck. Nice. But yeah, so move this one to there. So that'll be a public method that I want to make. So we're changing the deck standard deck class a little bit. But it's going to have a clean method that's clearing things up, and I will call the clean method inside of my UI controller case. Clean. So clean cleans the card, whatever's left over, kill from the inside there. We should remove all those. And then let's try it out. And if there's none, it'll just clean up it just remove the cards from in here. So if I click reset, they're gone. Right? Nothing in there. All right. And let's try that again. So if I go back and if I click reset, then if I click start, and if I click reset, they're gone. Right? Nice. Start. Can't do it because there's nothing in the deck. Wonderful. Excellent. So this part, what it did was it cleaned up everything. So it just removed everything from the deck. Now what I want to do is go back to the standard deck and I want to initialize again. So I want to shuffle it, and then I need to push stuff up to the stack again. And when I initialize, then this will be everything back. Put everything back, but they'll be put back in the parent and they'll be out of the scene and they'll be reshuffled. Perfect. Let's try that again. So then what I want is, instead of the UI controller, I want to call initialize. So I want to say remove, kill everything, and then initialize. Game controller dot deck dot initialize, right? And that will reinitialize the deck and put everything back to normal. Let's see if that works. So I have some cards, I reset, and then I have cards again, right? And then I can choose a different normal and start, and then I can reset, and I can start, and I can reset, and I can start, and I can reset, and I can start, and I can reset as often as I want. And if I go to 2x4, I can start. I can choose, this is an easier type of game to play. So I can, okay, so those match, they'll be gone. And then I would go, okay, these ones, this one, 8 and 8. Ha, look at that, those match. So I haven't lost so far. And then this one, ace and ace. Oh, random. And then these are the last ones. I won the game. And that was pretty cool. So then I can reset and I can start and I can play the game again, right? Now there's some stuff that you need to do from your stuff. I messed this up, but that's okay. But this is pretty good. So the one thing I can do is, what if I reset twice? So if I go reset and reset and reset, it just changes the order. That's all it does. It doesn't hurt anything if I reset the game. What about if I start twice? If I already start, and if I already have cards in play, and this is where you have to turn it on, some Booleans that basically say I'm in play. You know, the game is playing and I'm counting down. I've got some kind of countdown or something that's showing me stuff. I can't click start again. Start should be disabled until reset is pressed. Okay, that's easy to do. So in order for me to do that, I need to get references to my start button. And that's all I need. So let's do that. So I'll say a public game object, that is the start button. Okay. And what I can say is, after I start, when start's pressed, I can say that the start button got set active is false. We just take it away. There's no more set. There's no more button. It doesn't even appear anymore, right? So that you can't press start again. You can only press start once, and then the start button's gone. And then when I reset, then I want to say start button dot set active is true, which will put the start button back in the scene, all right? Which is something that I want to do. So that's how you can control the start button. We need a reference to the start button, and we're going to do that by going into the game controller, and I'm just going to hide these things. And under the game controller, we have the start button, and I'm just going to choose the start button here. So that's there, save. And that is a way of doing it. If I press play now, let's try this out. Now you'll have a bit of more functionality. I click start, start goes away. and I can't press start again because it's gone. And then if I win the game, then I can reset and start comes back. And I can choose a different thing and I can press start, and then I can try this hardness. And if I reset, start comes back, and I can click start again, but I can't click start twice, which is awesome. I think this is where I'm going to stop, guys. I think this gives you a great base to move from, and I've built it with you guys from scratch. You see what I've done. I think you've seen how things are put together. And this would be a great thing. This is your in-class exercise for today, right? So I know it's a bit of extra work, but the great thing is you have the video, you can build it yourself, and then I'll put up a little document about what I need you guys to do for the in-class exercises, like I always do, just to make sure you have all the details. Okay, it's a big one, but it isn't actually that big because I've given you everything that you need, and you have examples of my code too. Okay, so all I need you to do is try and do this this part, but it gives you a bit of UI. It's given you the ability for you to deal cards with a bunch of transforms. And again, all I did was lay out the cards. So we did a lot of work, kind of on the project today, but this is kind of getting you closer to everything you need to go with for your assignment 1. And it also gives us a good foundation for what we're going to be doing with the stuff on Monday, because I'm going to be using this project that I just made as a project that I'm going to build on with you guys for Monday's exam. Okay, guys, hopefully this helps, and this is good. I'm going to stop recording now and put all this up on GitHub. So let's do that first. Big GitHub first is the important part. So I'm going to go to terminal, and I'm going to say git add dot git commit -m, and we'll say added reset button behavior, and then git push. That's going to be a big one, and we're that much closer to your stuff for this one. So hopefully this was enjoyable to you. I'm going to stop recording now. Oh, one more thing before I stop recording. I know, I'm sorry, James. One more thing I stop recording. Please remember that a couple things that coming up next week on Monday. We are going to open up the test. I will send you guys a note saying, hey, the test is open. There'll be details about the test. It'll be including some of the stuff we're going to be using. And I'm probably going to be using, like I said, the stuff that we built today as a base, but you'll be doing something else with on Monday. Okay, so something that's pretty straightforward. Okay, otherwise, that's it for today, guys. I'm going to stop recording.